When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
John Legend, Sheryl Crow, Elvis Costello, and Alanis Morissette star in the MGM Plus original series, Words and Music. Iconic artists share intimate performances and the stories behind the songs. New episodes Sundays on MGM Plus.
Welcome to the Dr. Raj podcast with Dr. Raj Dasgupta, a show all about educating patients, students, and aspiring doctors about better patient care. Dr. Raj is a quadruple board-certified physician and associate professor at the University of Southern California. He was a co-host of the TNT series Chasing the Cure with Ann Curry, as well as a regular on the TV show The Doctors. And now, here's our show.
Hi, and welcome to the Dr. Raj podcast. And what is this a podcast of? A podcast of happiness and wellness and awesome people, amazing stories. And yes, we have rock stars on the podcast. That's when you know you hit the big time. So today's guest is going to be Kevin Martin, who is known as the lead vocalist of the rock band Candlebox. He was born in Elgin, Illinois, to mother Donna and father Richard. Kevin learned early on that music was going to be a constant in his life. Both his mother and father were musical, mother a singer, father a jazz musician, as were his older siblings. His sister Heather introduced him to the clarinet and the flute, brother Dennis, the drums, and brother Brian, the saxophone. His father was a sales manager, so, quote, living life out of a suitcase, end quote, was an early understanding for Kevin as the family moved several times in his early years, and ending up in San Antonio, Texas, when he was 10. Then subsequently, they moved to Mercer Island, Washington, near Seattle, when Martin was around 14 years old. Kevin spent his high school years searching for the perfect musicians to jam with. And at a chance meeting on his 16th birthday, he met future bandmate Scott Mercado, drummer for Candlebox. He and Scott ran into one another again in 1989 and set out to start a band in 1990. Candlebox was formed in 91 after guitarist Peter Klett and bassist Bardi Martin joined them. They gained a Billboard 200 top 10 hit in 1993 with their self-titled debut album released by Maverick Records. The album's success was largely due to the single Far Behind. Candlebox released 2 more studio albums in the 1990s and released another 5 studio albums since 2006, with their latest offering titled The Long Goodbye, being labeled as their very last album ever, as Kevin will be retiring from music at the end of this year. So it is with great pleasure as a fan, as a podcast host, to introduce Kevin Martin. How you doing, bud?
I'm good. That is the most long-winded bio ever. I told you to chop it up more.
Dude, I mean, I'm telling you, it was longer than one of my little medical books I had to read. That was a short version. That was.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, welcome to medical school with Kevin Martin. Good Lord.
So anyways, I am so pumped up for these questions, but I wanted to keep it something realistic. Now, I was kind of looking at old interviews, and no one's asked you this in a while. So my first question for you is, how did you even pick the name Candlebox? What's the story behind that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when we were looking for band names, we were initially called Uncle Duke when Scott and I first started the band, and okay. Which was based, on the character in Doonesbury, which was Hunter S. Thompson's character, which I always loved Hunter S. Thompson. I've read every single book he's ever released, and so we thought the name Uncle Duke was cool because we were a little more on the blues side of things. Then when Pete and Bardi joined the band, we shifted towards the more alternative and arena rock style. And so we were looking for a new name. I grew up with an amazing affinity for Australia. I don't know why. I'm actually married to an Australian woman. But my first band was actually called Wagga Wagga, which is a tiny little town in northern Australia that people in Australia don't even know. So I don't know why I got this affinity for it. Maybe in a past life I was Australian, but one of my favorite bands of all time is Midnight Oil. And when I was on my 18th birthday, I went to see them in Seattle at the Moore Theater. And I was actually tripping on drugs at the time. So I was threatened and scared. And I never forgot that. And so when we were looking for a name, I went through some of my lyrics or some of the lyrics that he had written on a record called Countdown, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And there's a song on there called Tin Legs and Tin Minds where he talks about the Aboriginals being boxed in like candles and that you can't contain that kind of beauty. And trying to do that, and by putting them on reservations, if you will, or in land that's controlled by government for them, that's what you were doing. You were stifling this beautiful people, and I thought that was the imagery of that was really incredible. So I turned to the guys and said, "What do you think about Candlebox?" As one word, and they were like, "Well, let's try it for a while and see if it sticks," and it ended up sticking. So that's how the name came about.
Yes, it did, definitely. So, okay, I like this is the follow-up over here. So you guys have been doing your thing for like 30 years, and like, where does the time go? So when you guys first started, did you even think for an inkling that you'd be together so long, making the music, touring, getting some new fans? Is this like blowing your mind, or did you knew you had something special?
Well, I think, every band sets out to be, an Aerosmith or a Rolling Stones or, I mean, that's your goal. Sadly, we're not. I'm the last remaining member. Bardi has got his own law practice in Seattle. He left in 99. Scott left in 97, and he's got his own business. And Pete left in 2015. He's got a major production company down in Tampa where he produces bands and makes records. So I'm the last man standing in the band. Did I think that it would be around 30 years? Absolutely not. Had I hoped it would be around for 30 years? Absolutely. I mean, everyone wants to have a career in music. When you're a young kid and you dream about being a rock star, you hope that somehow it's going to last. And, lucky for me, writing a song like Far Behind with Pete, Bardi, and Scott, way back 32 years ago, because that version that's on the album is actually the demo. We never re-recorded it. That's a demo version. And it's a one-take vocal, it's a one-take guitar solo, it's a one-take drum and bass part. So going on. So yes, to answer your question, I think we knew we had something special. And we were just hoping that the rest of the world wanted to pay attention to another band from Seattle, because at that point, by the time our record come out in 93, I think everybody was pretty much, done with grunge music and what was going on in Seattle. So we were very lucky.
Man, I think you're like looking at my questions because you lead me into the best one, dude. Now, it's going to be a growing up in Seattle question. So, I only do the audio. They can't see you, but you look very Seattle grunchy. Like you're ready to pick up some old school right now, dude.
My Hawaiian shirt?
Dude, you got the long hair with the glasses and the car. You're so, I dig it, dude. So anyways, growing up in Seattle, being part of the grunge scene, I got to ask you, were you hanging with some of the big boys like Eddie Vedder, for people who don't know, from Pearl Jam, Kurt Cobain, the Nirvana dude, Chris Cornell was the Soundgarden dude? Like, were they influencing you? Were you jamming with them?
No, I'm 5 years in age younger than most of those guys. I was very close friends with Lane Staley. I was really good friends with Chris Cornell and Andy Wood from Mother Love Bone, and I had become close friends because of a job I had at a shoe store in Seattle called Fluvog, which was on First Avenue. So that was kind of my introduction to a lot of these musicians. Was Susan Silver, who was the manager of Soundgarden at the time. She managed this shoe store called Fluvog on First Avenue. I got hired there when I was 16, my junior year of high school. So I would leave high school and take the bus downtown and work, from like 3 o'clock till 7 p.m. On the weekdays. And then on the weekends, I would work the Saturday and Sunday shift. So that's kind of how I got introduced to all these musicians, because they would come in to pick up their flyers. And Seattle's still a city where you can actually tag telephone poles with your show flyers, or, if you have a garage sale coming up. So they would all come in for those flyers. So that's how I met Chris. That's how I met Andy. That's how I met Lane. That's how I met Barrett Martin from Screaming Trees. Eddie Vedder wasn't living in Seattle at the time. He was still in San Diego. I didn't meet Eddie until I believe 1989 when he came up to sing on the Temple of the Dog record.
Ah.
But being that I was a 16-year-old kid, there's not a lot of 21-year-olds that want to hang out with their little brother, if you will. So, but I think they enjoyed, my conversation in Fluvog, and over the years I would see Chris at shows and we'd catch up, or Stone and Jeff from Pearl Jam. I've known those guys forever. I was actually one of the first singers to sing on the demo tape when they were looking for a singer to replace Andy. It was myself, Ty Wilmer from Green Apple Quickstep, and I think Dan from Blood Circus. There was a couple of us that got the cassette tape, so I was kind of included in it, but unfortunately I missed that boat.
Well, I think you caught a good boat regardless, but this is going to be a great segue. So, hey, what, with Seattle being air quotes saturated around that time, you know what I mean? I know you're younger than the people I just mentioned, but what do you think sets you apart, your band apart, Candlebox apart from the other bands, you know what I mean, during your time you're duking out for supremacy?
Well, I think it had a lot to do with Pete's playing style and Bardi's playing style, the bass player and the guitar player. Pete was a huge Michael Schenker fan. He grew up on UFO and those kinds of rock bands, and he loved David Gilmour. So we immediately had a blues-based rock guitar player in the band, which I had never played with anybody like that. I was playing drums in a punk band before I started singing for Candlebox. I got stuck with this job 35 years ago, so I'm still the reluctant lead singer of Candlebox. But so having Pete come in with that influence, and then Bardi grew up listening to The Clash and Jacob Astori and what's his name, John Entwistle from The Who. So he brought a really boisterous rock style playing bass. So I think that the combination of those two versus the way I sing and Scott's drumming style, which is very Steve Gadd and classic Jeff Porcaro style, we created kind of an arena rock blues band that kind of found its footing outside of that Seattle community. And I think, like I said, I think people were kind of ready for a change. The combination of the four of our styles created what Candlebox is and what Candlebox has continued to be over, the past 35 years.
Man. So, when I was looking at your bio and where Candlebox came from, one of the biggest moments was signing with Maverick Records. So I think of it kind of like this movie called That Thing You Do. I don't know if you ever watched it, where this little band suddenly signs with the big, label, and then boom. Was that kind of like what happened to Candlebox? And for those who don't know, Maverick Records, at least at the time, was kind of owned by Madonna. So my question also to you, and you better be honest about it, did you get to party with Madonna?
Well, the signing, I'll answer that two-part question very quickly. Yeah. The signing was mind-blowing. As a child, of musical love and favorite bands and going to see concerts, that's your dream, is to sign that deal. So that was mind-blowing. And to this day, I pinch myself every time thinking that, God, I'm one of the lucky ones that actually signed a record contract. But at the same time, it was the worst thing that I ever did. Because it's, there's no real protection for musicians in this world. We don't have like a union that protects you from that type of thing. And, you starting a band, you're setting yourself up for failure immediately. And it's certainly, if you sign to a major label, you're lucky if you ever recoup, and you got to tour forever to make money. So like I said, it was a blessing and a curse to sign to Maverick. At the same time, the beauty of it was we had great respect from Madonna. She really treated us really, really well. We had a great A&R guy by the name of Guy Osiri, who went out on a limb for us on several occasions to make sure that we had everything that we needed as a band to succeed. And the label was owned by Freddie DeMann as well, who was Madonna's manager at the time. And he had also managed Michael Jackson, and he was managing Lionel Richie at the time. So we had this really powerful trio of people that supported us and believed in us, and gave us every opportunity in the world. So yes, it was a blessing and a curse. I did party with an amazing person. She's a beautiful soul. I don't know what she's done to her face recently, but inside of that person is a really, really beautiful human being. And without her and Guy and Freddie, we never would have had an opportunity. We had offers from Geffen, we had offers from Capitol, we had offers from Interscope, we had offers from Atlantic, we had offers from Sony, but we passed on all of those because we wanted that one-on-one attention that we knew we were going to get from Guy, Freddie, and Madonna.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so you kind of know this is coming. I want to ask you about the big hit, the mega hit, Far Behind. So, beyond being the breakthrough song for you folks, what's the kind of meaning behind this song? What's the story behind this song?
Well, when it first came out, our producer Kelly Gray's like, the lyric was initially "Now Andy, I didn't mean to treat you bad." It's about Andrew Wood, the singer from Mother Love Bone. Andy, which is of course the Temple of the Dog record, is an homage to Andy and Chris and Andy's relationship. They were roommates. And then Alice in Chains wrote the song Wood, which is about Andy as well. Andy was kind of the glue that held Seattle together musically. Mark Arm is kind of the godfather. Mark Arm, of course, from the band Mudhoney, is kind of the godfather of the grunge scene. But Andy was kind of this magnificent rock star. He was the Freddie Mercury of the Seattle music scene in the 80s. And I say that because when you would go see Mother Love Bone play, they'd be in a small club and he'd be like, "Can you feel me in the balcony? Can you see me in the balcony?" And there was no balcony, but that was what he was. And he was just this larger than life human being. And I remember meeting him when I was 16 years old and chatting with him about, I'm getting goosebumps telling a story, chatting with him about music and the things that inspired him. He had a band called Malfunkshun, which I absolutely loved, and with his brother Kevin. And so I would just ask him questions about songwriting because it seemed like he would release a song every single day. It was so weird. Like he'd come and say, "Hey man, here's a cassette tape. You got to listen to this track." And so that relationship that I had with him that was early on in my, budding career as a musician, and the influence that he had on me and the inspiration that he gave me, it felt like I had to write that song for him after he, "Oh, you want this to be about Andy?" He's like, "You want this song to be for everyone." And he's like, maybe just change the word to maybe instead of Andy. And so he tried that and it worked. And so for, 30 years, everybody thought it was a love song about losing someone close to them or, about a relationship that went south. But for me, it was just paying respect to Andy. And the song is written from the perspective of heroin. I didn't mean to treat you bad, but I did it anyways. In other words, I'm a drug, you're choosing me, and I'm going to kill you if you're not careful. And that's what the song's about. So I wrote it from the lyrical perspective of heroin speaking to an addict.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just
speaking into the void?
But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Oh, Hilton stay, oh, Hilton stay. Your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay, oh, Hilton stay. A holiday you're saving.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. This season, enjoy spacious, comfortable rooms and friendly service when you book with Hilton instead. Hilton for the stay.
My God. I don't even know where to go from here, but I do want to ask, how did you and your band, how did you avoid, I was reading about that era of music. There was lots of drugs. You're right. The big H was kind of the hip thing at the time. How did you avoid not falling into that trap?
I think it was watching my friends die from it. It scared the shit out of me. It was, I did a lot of drugs in high school. And I quit doing drugs after that Midnight Oil concert, which I was talking about on my 18th birthday. I still do mushrooms. I still, eat gummies. I don't smoke marijuana, but and I appreciate what it does. When you allow your mind to open up with something that is a natural high like mushrooms and marijuana. I think if God created it and it grows on this earth, then we should be able to take it. If it's synthetic and you're creating some sort of lifestyle out of that, that's what I don't want to be out there. But that's a whole other point. But yes, I think it's just scared me so much. And when you walk in on your friend and he looks like a zombie and he's totally out of his mind and there's a needle sticking out of his arm, that's not a pleasant sight. And it's something that you never forget. And I always told myself I'm never going to be that person. And if I can survive being in this environment, I'm going to make sure that I don't ever do that to myself. So that's how which I think that's just part of the rock star bullshit that people grow up thinking that they have to do, which ended up being to the detriment of the band. It broke the band up in '99. So
wow.
I think everybody kind of learned from that. Pete's been sober now. My guitar player's been sober now for 24 years.
That's awesome.
But if he'd have known back then what it was going to do to him and to us, I think he would have probably been a little more careful with it. But that's life, and these are lessons that we learn, and I wouldn't change where I'm at for anything. I mean, the direction that my life took because of everything that's happened and where I've been, I'm happier than I could ever be.
No, I love that. And that's an amazing story. All right. So I'm going to do a selfish question. Here's a selfish question. My favorite band, it's Rush. And I heard that, you got a chance to open for them, which is probably on my top 5 of things I'd love to do. Any cool stories that you want to tell me? And how was Geddy and Alex and Neil? And kind of an embarrassing question, when you were opening for them, were there times you were just watching them play Subdivisions and Limelight on the stage, and would you sing along?
Oh man, yeah. I learned to play drums by playing to Rush Records because of my older brother Dennis, which is in my bio. I used to try and emulate Neil Peart's playing style, which I never could. I was far more of a meat and potatoes guy, but I loved his playing style. So when the opportunity came for us to open with him, I lost my mind. I was like, this is not possible that they're asking us to go on tour. And then my brother Dennis was like, you got to bring me backstage, and that sort of shit. So yeah, I mean, that was life-changing, life-altering experience. We toured with them for 3 months, from January to April, actually 4 months. And we had the best time with them. We would watch them every single night. My favorite story of touring with them is the end of tour party, which was in Albany, New York. We played golf with the band, and I was teamed up with Neil because Scott didn't play golf. And I wasn't even asking him about drums. I was asking about lyrics. I was asking about books, where his inspiration came for songs like Red Barchetta, and because he was a brilliant lyricist, and I wanted to pick his brain about it. And we smoked cigars, and we had a beautiful time, and it was such an amazing experience. At the end of the tour, back in the day, you always kind of gave the bands that you opened for gifts to thank them for giving you the opportunity. And with Rush, we gave them individual gifts. Geddy Lee had chia pets on stage during our tour with him, but he hated Jerry Garcia, so we got him a Jerry Garcia from the Grateful Dead chia pet head. Alex Lifeson loved Scotch, so we got him a 25-year-old bottle of Macallan. And Neil Peart he was so good at throwing his sticks, but he was also really good that if he missed it, it looked like he caught it with his right hand. But if you would only see that if you were backstage. So we saw several sticks get dropped. So we got him a right-handed catcher's mitt. And, they laughed, and we had a great relationship. And the last show we played with them was in Rochester at the War Memorial. And as we were leaving, we had to catch a plane to get to Los Angeles to film a video. Alex walked off stage while he was playing and said, you guys, this has been one of the greatest tours we've ever had. Thank you so much. So it really was a special tour for us. And I'll never forget it. They were the sweetest, greatest, most beautiful human beings that a band could ever have an opportunity to open for. Years later, I went to see them in 2002 at Irvine Meadows in Los Angeles. And I went backstage, and they immediately recognized me and walked over and just were like, oh my God, how have you been? What a career. And so it was amazing for them to remember me from, 8 years prior. So it was, and that was, of course, Neil was not speaking to anybody at that. He was not at the meet and greet because his daughter had passed and his wife had passed. So he was in that private stage of his life, which he didn't, was unfortunate because I would have loved to have been able to say hello, but they were amazing, man. They're the greatest band. And to this day, I still consider them to be one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time.
Dude, we're on the same page with that. I mean, all right, I'm going to change the questions here. So, I did my due diligence research about your life and I love it. So, when I think about your first album, you know what I mean? Multiple hits. I want to mention a couple of other words. I like You. I love Cover Me. You know what I mean? And of course, Far Behind. So my question is, to be a little awkward, coming up the second album was titled Lucy. Did it put a lot of stress on you to come up with a really kick-ass second album because your first was so good? Did it was it kind of bad that you started off so awesome? You know what I mean?
It's a really difficult thing. Pearl Jam was lucky enough to follow up 10 with a really brilliant album called Verses, with an entirely different rhythm section, which was, not entirely different because Dave Cruzen leaving, bringing David Bruzzese, and there were two different style of drummers. And so I think that's why Verses is as an aggressive an album as it is. For us, Lucy was a conscious decision to make a left turn. We wanted to make a 90-degree turn away from what we had done because we knew that people were going to expect us to try and follow Far Behind and Cover Me, which we did not want to do. We knew we had different styles of music that we wanted to explore, and that's why Lucy is the record that it is. It's not my favorite album, but there are songs on it that I absolutely love. And I think that the beauty of that record is it got rid of the fans that only loved us for Far Behind. And we knew that we were narrowing our focus on what we were going to be future creating as a band and what audience we were going to try and bring in. Of course, we would have loved to have sold another 7 million records, but that's not normally in the books for any band with a follow-up record. And then, of course, coming off of Lucy and going to do Happy Pills, we had some member changes, and Dave Cruzen at that point from Pearl Jam had joined Candlebox. So we had a giant leap forward with the record Happy Pills. We made a lot of changes musically, stylistically, and creatively, and so it kind of set us up to make records like Into the Sun and Love Stories and Other Musings, Disappearing in Airports, Wolves, and now The Long Goodbye. So we really kind of we knew what we were setting ourselves up to create. I just wish that it had been the same band, Scott, Bardi, Pete, and I, over the past 30 years. But, things change and people change and life moves on.
So this next question, I promised my wife I was going to ask you because me and her were debating about what are cool questions to ask Evan. So bear with me. It's a long question. So recently, my wife and I went to see U2 at the Sphere in Vegas. And, when you see kind of nostalgic bands, you want to hear your favorite songs. So Bono, during the concert, every time there was like a classic song like Streets Have No Names, he'd kind of change it up and not play it like the original song. And that's kind of like my pet peeve. Like when I want to hear my favorite songs, I want to hear it verbatim. You know what I'm saying? Like Rush wouldn't do that. So my question to you is, what is your take on bands playing their hits the way people remember them? For example, when you sing Far Behind, are you going to make stuff up and not be verbatim? What's your take on that?
Yeah. Well, I think people like Bono can take liberty with their hit songs, but it has a lot to do with age and being able to sing certain songs the way you did when you were younger. That's a difficult thing as well. Every time when I make a record, I have to think to myself, I'm going to have to sing the song for the next 10, 15 years. And if I've got a big loud scream in it or a long held out note, is that something that I really want to do? So I can understand, like I just went and saw the Stones and, he doesn't sing Monkey Man the way he used to, but he does the best he can because he's, 79 years old or whatever, 80. I prefer, when I do Far Behind, I do it exactly the same way as it is on the album. And I try to do that because more so I want to prove to myself that I'm capable of still singing the way I used to, but also, I want to prove to an audience that there's a validity to what Candlebox created. I went to see the Cult recently, and I was really disappointed in the fact that Ian Astbury doesn't sing the way he used to. He doesn't finish the phrasing of Fire Woman. He doesn't hold the notes out. He doesn't sing She Sells Sanctuary the way that it should be. But then again, you can argue, well, if you want to hear it that way, go listen to the record. But at least put it in the fucking ballpark, pardon my French. So I guess that answers your question in the way that I prefer it to be done the way that it was recorded. or, relatively, like I said, in the ballpark. If you're 80 years old, I understand. If you're 65, I understand. It's, some of these notes that I hit on some of these songs that I got to do live. I mean, it takes a lot of energy to get to that note,
Yeah.
So I can understand it.
No, we're on the same page. And may I add, if you're looking for a new best friend, I could be your best friend, because your taste in music, when you nailed the Cult and you nailed those songs and all your references, I'm like, dude, I would be your best. Like, how many Indian cool bald doctor friends do you have? I should be on your list, dude.
I don't have I'm saving your phone number.
Okay. Hey, I wanted to switch gears a little bit. I do want to talk about the Riptide Society, and I'm very super pumped on this. So I'm just going to leave it open-ended. What's the story behind you founding it and being the voice for this organization? And can you explain the organization?
Sure. RiptideSociety.org is an organization, charity organization I founded with a buddy of mine, Todd Young, out of Austin, Texas. It's an organization that we're raising money for at-risk youth and young adults in the foster care system, which is a broken system here in the United States. And it was the reason that I kind of got involved with it is one of my best friends in the world, Matt Aporta, he and his wife, Mary Beth, they almost lost him 3 or 4 times, which is, of course, what happens in this system. An uncle, an aunt, a grandmother, a grandfather, great-grandmother can make a claim for the child, even though most of the time it's not what's best for that kid. It happens a lot. And so Maddie and Mary Beth almost lost their little man a couple times. And it was watching them go through that, the fear in their eyes and the hurt and the heartbreak was something I was like, man, I got to do something in this world of raising awareness of this. So I started the foundation with Todd. We do 2 shows every year in Dallas and Austin, one in Dallas, acoustically. This year I've got Ed Roland from Collective Soul and Justin from Blue October. But, that's the goal, is just kind of play music for people, raise money, and raise awareness as to what's going on. Because our goal ultimately is to create a bill that would change the way that the money is spent towards these children. When families can get $2,000 to up to $6,000 per child, and you have houses that have 10 kids in it, and these families are making $20,000 to $60,000 a month, they're not spending it on the children. The kids don't have close to where to school. We want to create a bill and change the law that at least 25% of every dollar that comes in for that child goes into a trust. So when they turn 21, they are able to pull from that trust to make a living, because that's what we're doing right now. Is like, we've given away 3 cars so far. We have Subaru of Austin, which is one of our partners. And then when we feel that we found a candidate that's giving back, that was raised in the foster care system, that's giving back to the foster care system, we try to do everything we can to make that life for that person a little bit easier. We also have a summer camp that we do on Lake Travis in Austin, where we have 100 kids that come in. They spend a whole weekend. We've got a camp there. They learn how to water ski. They learn how to jet ski. They learn how to wave ride, anything they want to do to make their lives a little bit better for, a week in Austin on the lake. So there's things that we want to do to give them, an idea that things are better and they can get better. And there is a life out there for them that I think that they can create, as long as they commit to doing better for themselves and being a better human being. And that's what we want to do, is we want to help raise money for that.
I love it. And what we're going to do is put information about the Riptide Society in the show notes for everyone. But, Kevin, you've pretty much survived almost the entire podcast. There's one more question for you. And it's going to be, hey, you're touring now, and now you're going to be touring with Bush, which, by the way, dude, that's an awesome band. And Jerry Cantrell, which, for those who don't know, I believe is the guitarist for Alice in Chains, who now kind of took over. And this is going to be your last tour, air quote, I put, supposedly. So with your retirement kind of in the horizon, is there anything you're most excited about in regards to taking a step back from Candlebox and being you? What are you excited about after this?
Well, I'm releasing a bourbon with a buddy of mine. I'm a big fan of bourbon. I've been drinking it for years. It's everybody asks me how I keep my voice in shape, and I drink way too much bourbon. That's how. But my buddy Nick Brown from the band Mona and I, we know that the future for us as musicians is not really that promising. And so we started discussing what we should do together, and we decided to do a bourbon. So that comes out in October. It's called Lost Marbles Spirits Company. And that's something I'm really, really stoked about. And then that's a small batch, and then we're going to do a single barrel in January, and so that's something that will keep me really, really busy. The Riptide Society will keep me busy. Charitable organizations that called asked me to come and play. I've got 3 or 4 that I'm doing next year, so I will still play music for that. I just won't tour and I won't make records anymore. And even with the bourbon, like, I'll be going to bars and distribution places, and I'll probably get up and play an acoustic, song here or there, just to kind of remind people who I am and why I've created this bourbon and instead of making music. But it's just whatever I can do to keep myself busy. I'm 55 years old. If I've got 10 more years, I want to live those 10 years to the full.
Man, I'll tell you one thing. I mean, I don't get the chance to talk to too many rock stars. I hope they're all as nice as you. I do mean that. So
they're not.
I want to say a couple things. So first, I want to give a shout out to your friend and my friend Ken Chappelle for hooking us up. I mean, that's awesome. And I kind of wrote my closing here, but I didn't want to mess it up. All right. So I want to tell you that it's been such a treat to interview the lead singer of a band that I have in my CD collection, who touched so many people from my generation. Your song, Far Behind, will always be cranked up to the loudest level every time it comes on the radio. And thank you for being my guest today.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Thanks, Raj. Appreciate it.
All right. And for everyone listening to the Dr. Raj podcast, as we say goodbye today, I actually worked it out. Here is Candlebox's biggest hit, Far Behind.
Now maybe did I mean to treat you bad, but I did it anyway. And then maybe some would say your life was sad, but you lived it anyway. And so maybe your friends that stand around you watch you crumble as you fall down to the ground. And then someday your friends that stand beside as you were flying, oh, you were flying all so high. But then someday people look at you, they're what they call their own, they watch you suffer. Yeah, here you're going home. And then someday we could take our time to brush the leaves aside so you can reach us. Hey, but you left me far behind. Now, did I mean to treat you so bad? But I did it anyway. Now I'm saying, but some would say you left with what you had, but you couldn't share the pain. Yeah, now, couldn't share the pain and watch you suffer. Now maybe I could have made my own mistakes, but I live with what I've known. And then